day. Cool. What's going on, everybody? We are back with another video about, turn this down a little bit. There we go. About the importance of cooling down after exercise. So previously we did the importance of warming up before exercise, but both before and after warming up, cooling down, respectively, is important. I just recently started doing both, and I've already noticed some benefits to them. So, with that being said, let's dive on in. So, we've already covered the basis of warming up prior to exercise. So now we can actually get into cooling down and kind of the difference between the two and the positive effects that it has on your body. I actually find that this gets neglected a lot more than warming up itself, because a lot of people just basically finish their workouts and then they immediately want to just shift their focus onto whatever the next thing is. So they'll get their last set of bicep curls in or whatever, and then instantly it's like, what am I going to have for a post-workout meal? I'm going to have a post-workout shake, sushi. Where are we going? What are we going to do? So, of course, this is good because a post-workout meal does have its benefits, but I'll get into that in a separate post. But again, right after workout, it's 5-10 minutes of cooling down before. It's not going to kill you. If you don't get protein in within 40 minutes, it won't be the end of the world. The difference is maybe 0.5% out of 100. So realistically, doesn't matter. But yeah, do not let a proper cool down be forgotten. So basically, to first summarize cooling down, it can be thought of a literal sense, meaning that you're going to be lowering your body's internal temperature, basically by lowering your heart rate and slowing your breathing back down to a normal level. Because when, again, your heart rate is elevated, you're going to be breathing a lot faster than, when you're just kind of doing whatever, like I'm sitting here right now with just breaths like... So, you get the idea. So, during intense activity levels, again, they're going to be elevated because your body's saying, "Hey, what's going on out there? Like, what are you doing? What's happening?" And it's basically your body itself is actually going to act as a defense mechanism to prevent your body from any injury or harm. Again, because all these senses are elevated, so your body it senses that there is some sort of risk. So you may be familiar with the term fight or flight mode. That's basically what your body is kind of thinking of. This is where the idea stems from. So this is happening during exercise. So again, this would be a separate topic. But during this time, your body goes into fight or flight. So it's like we need to take any corrective measures necessary to prevent us from being injured or whatever the case. So again, during elevated activity levels, your body does induce a lot of stress. Again, this can happen both physically and mentally. This happens whether you're running, playing sports, weightlifting, any form of physical activity, whenever you're doing anything. Each activity may create various levels of stress on different parts of your body, but your nervous system as a whole is still going to be affected, and your body is going to shift itself actually into a sympathetic state to help combat this. Again, sympathetic state is a whole nother subject that I'm going to get into in a separate video because there's a lot of information on that. It can go on forever. But with that being said, there's basically two different states that your nervous system recognizes. There's a sympathetic state and there's a parasympathetic state, which the latter we will get into shortly. So again, there's a lot of studies done on this, but it's important to realize that there are different shifts of your nervous system that do have their own benefits. They do kind of create different things throughout your body. Different patterns occur. You feel different mentally. There's a couple different things that we will get into again shortly. So during your cool down, basically what your main focus, it's safe to say your main focus, what it's going to be, is bringing your body back into a parasympathetic state. Again, because while you're working out, you're going to be in that fight or flight or sympathetic state mode. So your parasympathetic nervous system is going to be defined as a function to control your body's rest and digest response. During this state, you're going to be bringing your body to a more relaxed state, so that it realizes that there's no perceived threat against you. So when you were hammering away at those bicep curls, those tricep extensions, those shoulder presses, and you're basically tearing your muscles so that they can grow back stronger, during that time, your body's flipping out. Your body's like, "Whoa, what are we doing? We're not used to this. You know, we were all cool when we were at work. You know, just doing our own thing. And now you're coming at us, and you're trying to you know, literally tear us." So again, during that time, your body's freaking out. So during your cool down, you basically want to comfort your body, like, "Hey, little guy, hey, man, like, it's okay, like, you know, nothing bad's gonna happen right now. We're gonna get you sorted out. We're gonna get you fixed up. You're actually gonna repair yourself, so it's all good in the hood, man." Again, this will allow you to become more calm or calmer as your heart rate will decrease back to normal levels, because your currently tense muscles will become relaxed. And you'll probably notice that you may start to feel hunger here as well. Basically, this is just because your saliva production does increase to, again, assist your body with that digestion, as previously mentioned. And also the fact, if you were just working out for the past, hour or two, it's likely to assume that you haven't eaten during then. Some of us have a mid-workout meal, like a granola bar or whatever. But it's safe to assume that the majority of us don't do that. So this is where, you start to crave food, and this is where that post-workout meal comes into play, and you're like, what are we gonna get? What crazy idea are we gonna do? How much protein are we gonna get in right now? 50 grams, 100 grams? What are we gonna do? Dude, let's do it. So, again, but first, before we even do that, we gotta make sure or ensure that proper cool down is completed. Again, when your body's in a parasympathetic state, you're going to become much more relaxed, and that's going to allow both your mind and your muscles to de-stress. So the best way to begin this is to start with just a couple minutes of a low-intensity exercise that may allow your heart rate and your heart rate and your breathing to return to a normal state. Again, this can just simply be walking on a treadmill, just, walking, even if you just walk around the gym, and anything that's going to reduce your heart rate back to a normal level. And here you should actually focus on your breathing to ensure that you're taking deep breaths, preferably deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Again, probably you might want to do a 1 to 2 second deep breath in, and again, through your nose, because it allows us to take fuller breaths. It basically uses our lower lungs more so that we can fill our entire lungs with air. And then when we breathe out, it doesn't matter, through our nose, through our mouth, breathing out doesn't matter, just as long as we're getting that CO2 out there back into the world. And it's easier to breathe out through your mouth because obviously your mouth is larger than your two nostrils. So once you're done with that, again, short form of cool down, and your body's back to, it's back to its senses, then you're going to want to move on to stretching out your muscles that were used during that training session. There's two main reasons, even though they are similar, that you should be stretching after a workout, because it's going to improve flexibility and it's going to reduce muscle stiffness. So whenever you're in a scenario where you're looking to build muscle, again, put on size, weight, muscle mass, whatever term that you would like to use, you're going to require constant tension and repetitive motion of contracting said muscle to allow maximum exertion of pressure, which makes sense. Although it's going to involve both a concentric contraction, which is shortening the muscle, and an eccentric contraction, which is lengthening the muscle to achieve maximum muscle growth. Now, although I don't have any studies behind this, I'm going to say it's safe to assume that most of us, or in general, put a lot, including myself, put a lot more focus, time, energy, effort onto the concentric portion of the lift. Again, it is a bench press, and it's not a bench lower down our body to stretch the muscle. That it's just not as catchy. That's just how it is. So it's not an issue, and don't get me wrong. It should not be thought of as an issue. It's not something that you should be worried about. You should the whole time down it should be the same as going up. No, it's not. It's not how it is. But as long as we're keeping this in mind in the back of our heads, and we're essentially overcompensating the fact that we're constantly looking to achieve the goal of shortening the muscle. So take a bicep curl, for example. When I have my arm out like this, my bicep, it is fully lengthened. When I bring it in to do a bicep curl, I'm shortening the muscle. The muscle is literally being shortened. Long, short, long, short, long, short. So when we do the bicep curl, most of us only focus on bringing the muscle up to actually shorten it, but we don't focus on when we're actually lengthening the muscle, which is the eccentric portion. Some of us do a lot. This is why you may see negative people doing negatives. So they'll basically do whatever it takes. They'll recruit extra muscles to get the weight up, as long as we start up here with the bicep curl, and then they'll focus and squeeze on bringing it back down, like so, to focus on the negative or the lengthening of the bicep. One way that you can notice that, again, not an issue, it's just something that you can notice is take your fingers or your hand and just take a look at it for a second and completely relax your hand. What happens? For me, when I do this and my hands are actually straight, then I'm focusing on keeping my hands straight. I'm using muscles in my fingers to keep my hands straight. When I am fully relaxed, this is just how it is. See how my fingers naturally curl. So this, I'm holding, this I'm naturally relaxed. To put into a ball again, you do have to focus on squeezing. To lengthen, focus on squeezing. To shorten, focus on squeezing. When you relax, again, they are just kind of this is just how it is. So they, again, because they have a slight bend. So why? This is weird. Why does this happen? So just think about this realistically for a second. So we're constantly using our finger muscles, and therefore we essentially always have them contracted concentrically via typing, driving, eating, holding any for object. Again, I can't think of very many scenarios where you require your fingers to be contracted fully. Again, eccentrically or lengthened, again, or completely straight, let alone having to focus on holding them like that for a prolonged period. Go ahead, even if you just try to hold your fingers like this for 30 seconds, but really focus on squeezing them. Then just by doing this alone, you'll start to feel like almost like DOMs in your fingers, which it's very strange. But again, this is just natural. This is not natural. And that's because we use our fingers to type, so we're always constantly like this, or we're always like this. So because of that, that's what causes that natural curve in our fingers. So again, back to post-workout stretching. You're going to improve your flexibility because your body will not as easily adapt to a shortened contraction of your muscles. You'll essentially be evening out any imbalances that you have with your posture. One of the most common things that I see is a lack of people that stretch their chest after a heavy chest workout. As time goes on without proper stretching of the chest muscles, you may begin to notice, again, especially if you're not using correct form, that your shoulders begin to, rather than sit naturally, they're going to internally rotate as your chest becomes stronger from all of the constant pressing that you're doing. So your chest muscles will want to remain shortened in a shortened position as opposed to a lengthened position, because when you're pressing, you're focusing so hard on getting that weight up, but then when you come back down, you don't really focus on that in the same sense. So when your chest gets, when it gets huge, which it will if you are, again, being consistent with your chest training, then eventually your shoulders will internally rotate forward, and then when you're walking around, you're going to be walking around like a little, a big gorilla man. Not the end of the world by any means. It's like one of those slight things that you'll notice, and it'll be a nuisance. Again, it can lead to poor form when trying to perform back exercises, because it makes it harder for you to externally rotate your shoulders to get your scapula retracted. So it does lead to a minor issue, but is it the end of the world? Not really. You still, as long as you are using correct form when chest training, the only issue with the internally rotated shoulders is that it does make yourself more prone to injury when actually training chest. So your chest muscles, they're literally going to be pulling your shoulders forward towards the front of your body. It leads to a decrease in flexibility because it's going to be harder for you to lengthen said muscle naturally. And then you'll notice, again, issues with scapular retraction, back training, perhaps even rear delt training. But with that being said, one of the best things that you can do is actually face pulls, because face pulls is going to train your shoulders alone to get that contraction that you're actually looking for. Excuse me. Oh, good. With your arms. So when you're pulling back like this is kind of how you want to be when you bench, because you're working your rear delts, but you want to get that scapula retracted all the time. Scapular retraction is the key to gains. Furthermore, tight or stiff muscles, they're going to actually reduce your ability to perform proper range of motion. If you can't fully lengthen your muscle due to poor flexibility, whatever the case may be, I mean, you'll notice a lot of people can't take their elbow and bring it behind their head. That's why you notice, and then even back in the day, if you had gym class or whatever, this stretch, this would always be one of the top stretches that you do, because it's so hard to get, and even for me, to get your elbows behind your head like so. That in itself is a friggin' workout. When this happens, when you can't fully lengthen your muscles, again, because of flexibility, you're going to start to recruit muscles which should not be recruited to help perform this movement. And now notice here, excuse me, that I did say perform the exercise, because the exercise itself would consider proper movement patterns utilizing the correct muscles, whereas the movement itself simply entails that you're only moving the weight in the direction necessary, with no thought on proper form. So when you bench, I'm moving the weight forward. Right now, I am moving the weight forward. If something is in my hand, I'm pressing it forward. This is a bench press. Now, am I doing it correctly? No, because my shoulder's all over the place. I'm not tight. I'm not utilizing my chest to its full potential. So I'm simply moving the weight. I'm not performing the exercise correctly. Two different things. So, again, if we take the bench press as an example, I wonder what my favorite lift is, even though I don't like where my bench is at personally, but oh well. Scapular retraction, it's so crucial because it allows us for safe use of the shoulder joints and keeps them locked underneath or behind your actual chest, allowing you to safely press the bar with the intended muscle, your chest, while also utilizing both your front deltoids, and your triceps, essentially to get the weight initially off of your chest, and then to actually lock out, you're going to be using a bit of your triceps. Hold on. So, if you don't have your scapula retracted, then you're actually prone to risk of a rotator cuff injury or shoulder impingement, which I did myself on both shoulders, which is why I'm trying to preach this as much as I humanly can to you to understand the importance of it, because it set me back so far, which I feel like I just keep repeating myself about this, and it's just not worth it to injure yourself for something so small, something that can be so easily fixed. It's just that people don't want to do it. I didn't do it until after it was already too late. So again, going back to being reactive versus being proactive. So again, Primary cause of this, because of lack of proper stretching. So when you're stretching post-workout, you're going to want to essentially think of eccentrically contracting or lengthening your targeted muscle to its maximum capability, applying pressure and holding it there for now here, this is where it gets kind of wonky because there are different recommendations. I personally like to say anywhere between 10 maybe up to 15 seconds. For example, when you perform a chest fly, at the bottom of the movement is when you have the full stretch. So when you're up here, your chest is completely shortened. So this is the concentric portion. Now you're going to want to do the eccentric portion when you bring them out, and when you're at the maximum capability, this is when your chest is fully lengthened. You want to keep in mind here though that although this is a great stretch, your goal here is not to overload your muscles with weight. The intention is just to use a challenging weight, and not a challenging weight, and instead use a weight that simply allows you to feel the stretch. So if I'm just holding my chest out here, I do feel the stretch, but I have nothing to actually stop my hand from coming forward. So there's nothing to actually for me to put pressure on to push against my chest. So I'm not getting any benefit out of that. Now, if I had something, if my hand I had something to press against, and I could actually rotate my body out like this, then I would be able to feel the stretch in my chest, and that's what you would want to hold for 10 to 15 seconds. Now, when you hold this, it shouldn't actually be painful. If you feel any pain, then just let off the tension slightly. So you should feel it, but you shouldn't feel it in the sense that you feel like something's going to tear or that it's uncomfortable to you. Again, this is when you should be the most comfortable because, again, you're in a parasympathetic state and your body's trying to calm itself down after you just smashed those weights. So what I would recommend is aim for about maybe 1 to 2 stretches for each body part that you do work that day. So again, say that you're doing chest, I'll hold this for 15 seconds, hold this for 15 seconds, and then, to be honest, for a chest movement, you could, again, you don't have much that you can do because there's only really 2 ways to actually activate your chest, and that's either by pressing or by doing a fly. So no matter what you do, your elbow is going to come out to the side of you or slightly behind you. So realistically, for your chest, sadly, you can use different angles, but as long as you are stretching it fully, again, you could just go 10-15 seconds, 10-15 seconds, and then do the exact same movement again as a worst case scenario. So now, I know some of you are probably asking, but Darian, what about stretching pre-workout? You didn't mention that. You didn't mention any stretching pre-workout. You just said, to do some sort of form of warm-up. What about stretching? I heard that's important. Good question. Now, let me explain. A warm-up is as equally as important as a cool-down. Don't get me wrong on that. But your focus on a warm-up is not to stretch your muscles in the same way that you do when you cool down. And by this I mean static stretching. So again, that's with holding your muscle when it's fully lengthened for a prolonged period of time. A static stretch. So this actually may cause injuries if performed pre-workout because it's going to decrease your strength and your power of that given muscle because it's already feel like it's being worked when in reality it's not. All you're doing is a simple stretch, but you're giving it the impression that, wow, like, why am I being worked right now? Like, this isn't heavy. There's no weight here. When you're warming up, try to shy away from that as much as you can. There are no real benefits to perform this type of stretching before exercise, and as I see it, there's only risks. So therefore, I would highly advise against doing so and only performing static stretching post-workout. So then your next day you won't be as sore, you'll feel much better, and then you won't feel as tight. Your muscle won't feel as tight the next day. So that is all that I have for you today. Again, I am going to post the link to the actual article that I have written. I'll post it down in the description. So for anyone who actually came this far, I love you and you're awesome. Again, you know what? If anyone came this far, if you comment down, this is gonna be a long shot, and I honestly don't think anyone's gonna do it, but I appreciate the heck out of you if you're still listening. To be honest, especially in these first couple of videos, because I'm gonna get into try to learn how to start using editing software, but again, it's a process. I love the process, so we're gonna keep at it. We're gonna try to to get some sick stuff, because I'm sure as much as you all love to hear me talk, I do want to add some more like flavor or spice to it. So yeah, so we will get there. We'll get there. Slow but steady. Slow and steady wins the race. Anyways, if you comment down, Darian loves Chipotle, then I will because I'm sure whoever's watching this lives in the GTA. I will personally take you out to Chipotle, on me, and I promise you that we'll set up a time and date as long as you live close. To me, obviously, like I'm not about to go drive. If you're watching this from a different state, whatever, then that's awesome. I appreciate the heck out of you. But I'm not trying to go down, to Florida here. But just as a gesture, for anyone sick enough to actually do that. So, yeah. Anyways, I am out for the night. Enjoy. Again, if you do find the content interesting, share it with a friend. I would appreciate that so much. There's even just a like of the video. People don't understand how crucial it is. But yeah, anyways, don't want to keep you here for much longer. So that's all for me. And I will see you guys back next week. Peace.